Hey folks, Keith McGowan here. I am the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. Today, we got into Brett's motor. We were going to wait till the kids came. Timing kind of went off for him, and the kids are always busy with sports. So Brett's old 40 horsepower motor, I'm hoping to save the engine block. Now we went ahead and took all the bolts out of the bottom, every single one of them except one that broke. So I'm surprised because I believe this is a 1991 motor, and it does have a lot of corrosion on the midsection. We'll show you that. And the lower unit was no good, bent prop shaft, water in the lower unit, so it wasn't worth investing. If you remember, we have another motor over there we're going to put on Brett's boat. We're going to do the steering because the steering cable was not locked up, but it was really getting stiff. Don't forget my used outboard motor buying guides for sale on Amazon. If you buy it for $20 and send me proof of purchase at keith@outboarddad.com, offering for a limited time to help you with a motor that you're working on, or a boat or a motor you're looking to purchase for your boat. So send me that email with proof of purchase, and I'm offering a half-an-hour session on the phone with you to help guide you so you make a better informed purchase. It's a $250 value for a limited time. So we got all our bolts disconnected. We went ahead and disconnected the power tilt and trim wire that goes down to our trim motor so the block can come up. As I said, we had one broken bolt. So we're just working on this now. We got it pretty loose, but we want to see if we can work the rest of that bolt out and get this block off of here. So that one bolt that broke, we were able to get the block up enough so that we could see the stud, and I had a good half an inch, maybe even 3/4, and I was able to get in there with a little Sawzall blade bent at an angle and get that cut. So this should come right up now. I'm going to disconnect the pisser tube. Disconnect the fuel line, didn't do that. There is some wiring that was connected to 3 lights that are on the front of this motor, and it has to do with the oil tank. So my guess is that when I get low on my oil, it has a little alarm or light that goes off to let it know it's low, and then let it know, probably shuts off the motor and possibly even puts it into limp mode if it gets down too low for the oil. So let's get this block out of here. We have that little stud left. Let's see if we're going to be able to take that out. So as we look here, we have the one bolt left over. I don't know how tight that's going to be, if I need to grab it with a pair of vice grips maybe. Yeah, it looks like this will come out without too much trouble. Now what I did was, I went ahead on boats.net and looked up the base gasket. Got that part number, wrote it down for this I think it's a 91 motor. And then Brett's new motor, that I believe is a 2001 if I'm not mistaken, I went ahead and looked that one up, and it's the same part number base gasket. So that tells me this, because this motor ran great, it was the midsection and the lower unit that had trouble. So we can winterize this. Go ahead, we'll put spray fogging oil in the carburetors. We'll make sure this is all wrapped up. We'll put it in a plastic bag. I'm going to take those controls that came off of this as well, and anything that's good that we can save from this, and put it together for Brett to hold on to in case he has a problem with his new motor, or newer motor. He should be able to unbolt that. I didn't have to ruin the midsection top part, so I think there's a top part to the midsection. Yes, there's a top part to the midsection, so we're going to try and save that next, because sometimes you have to cut into the midsection if these bolts break, and cut through with like a cutoff wheel in order to get the block off. So if I can save that part as well for him, now we got a good chance if something does happen with his other motor that he has this motor as a spare. So it's pretty cool. Because if you remember, we did a compression check on this, and it was beautiful, and the motor ran great. So, and this one's oil injected, whereas the newer one, believe it or not, is not oil injected. He's going to have to mix. So it's always good to have a spare. And not many people are able to have a spare motor, but that's why we found this motor for Brett, and that's why we did the research to make sure we had something like this with the possibility. We didn't know this would come apart at that time, but at least we had a possibility of being able to use this block if he has a problem with that one. So it's pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and take the rest of this stud out. Just going to clean it up a little bit, not going to go too crazy, and then we're going to make sure we winterize and lubricate our carburetor system and everything, and wrap this up all nice so that Brett can put it in his shed and save it in case he needs it for a rainy day. So we'll continue on for Brett, and we'll get this pan off. We're going to leave the wiring in there with the exception of the wire that feeds the power tilt and trim, because that's going to come separate. But we also have shift linkage in here. Not sure if that really matches his other motor, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. We'll just go ahead and disconnect this. I'm saving all the bolts in a little plastic Ziploc bag and washers. This way we have them if any of this needs to be reused. So of course the bolts that were holding the housing on here snapped off. We got the two in the front came right off, but the two in the back snapped off, and that kind of gets a lot of damage in the back here, so it might be a little stuck. But what was that fell down? That was our fuel connector. We'll put that, doesn't smell bad, we'll put that in a little plastic baggie too. But here is what I was talking about. So we got our shift rod here. We have some wiring that comes into a module, and then there's 3 lights here. I'm sure there was a label on here that said what those 3 lights were for, but this is connected to the oil sensors, so we want to make sure we save all that. And then we have our shift linkage in here. Don't know if that'll ever be used again, but something to hold on to in case we need it. Really, this top here is what I'm most concerned about, because sometimes, see, these are the bolts that snapped off. We're not going to go crazy working on that, but if need be, that could be simply drilled out and that can be tapped out. That's not a problem. But at least we can, so here's the bolt that we cut, and we got some carbon buildup. Oh no, that's just a gasket. So we can look down in here and see where our water tube comes up. Pretty cool. And now we can kind of clean this up. I'm going to see if we can take these bolts off, see if we can take the mounts off, because we're going to get rid of the midsection. It's broken up pretty bad. And then we'll save some of these parts for Brett and Zoe and Kyan. So it doesn't look like this top, this exhaust plate, midsection housing, whatever we're calling this piece. I'm sure if I looked it up, there's a specific name for it. Doesn't look like it's going to come off. We'll hook up the power tilt and trim to a battery and just see how much difficult it is going to be to get the power trim and tilt out of there. If it's too much work, we're probably not going to mess with it too much longer. It's up to him if he wants to save the whole midsection as is or not. It's kind of awkward to store unless he's got some good storage space. So keep in mind, the reason we're doing this, and keep this in mind when you're buying an outboard motor, if you already have an outboard, maybe you have one of these V6 1989 or 88 cross-flow motors, and it needs a power pack, it needs a stator, it needs a lower unit. You could buy a whole nother motor for a couple of $100s that has a blown engine. Maybe your motor is good and you can buy one for parts. Now you have a slew of spare parts, OEM parts, right? We don't want to buy something that has CDI ignition parts or something like that. It's kind of a crapshoot 50-50 whether or not that works or not. So it's a good idea to save those parts. So please like, subscribe, send me any comments that you have. Keep me in mind if you're coming out to look at a motor or a boat in New Jersey. Send me an email at keith@outboarddad.com, and I gladly come out and we can talk about what fee I charge to come out and go through and make sure that you're making a wise decision and have the best chance at a better boating experience. Have a great day.